The Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen Miniseries is brought to you by the Hydrogen Dialogue Summit and Expo, taking place December 6th and 7th at Nuremberg Exhibition Center.
This edition of the Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen Miniseries is brought to you by Force, a leading international strategy and management consultancy with focus on the entire trading value chain.
Welcome to Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen Miniseries, episode number 1. With me is my co-host, Roman Kunert. Roman, welcome to the miniseries.
Hi, Chris. Good to be here.
I am really excited about this miniseries. We're going to go in-depth into hydrogen. Today's episode, we're going to start with the fundamentals and put a platform in place for this dialogue going all the way up to the hydrogen show in Nuremberg. This is going to be an exciting series. Roman, why don't you kick off and get our guests involved, and let's go.
So we start off with Stefan and Carolin, who work for the Hydrogen Center Bavaria. Hi, Stefan. Hi, Carol. Welcome to the show. Maybe you quickly introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, Roman. Hi, Chris. Thanks for having us. Good to be here. I'm Carolin Reiser. I'm Manager for International Affairs at the Hydrogen Center Bavaria, or short H2B. This is a strategy and coordination center for hydrogen-related topics in Bavaria.
So, and hi from my side. I'm Stefan. I'm Head of Technology and Innovation at the H2B, and I'm really glad to be here and to discuss hydrogen with you today.
Hydrogen. That brings us right to the first question. So why are we actually talking so much about hydrogen nowadays?
That's a good question and kind of takes a bit to answer because, well, we believe that hydrogen will play a really crucial role in the future energy system, or meaning the future defossilized system. So what we basically trying to do is that we want to get away from the fossil fuels like oil, gas, and coal, and towards a future that is mainly built on renewable energies. So renewable energies like wind, solar, hydropower, or geothermal energy. And what we have right now is that we use electricity, and this is fed into the electrical grid, and we use it directly. Or we store it in certain quantities for a certain period of time by using battery electric storage systems. And in the future, we will use this electricity also for heating, for example, in heat pumps, and then we can also generate electricity again via turbines. But in the future, there will be situations where we don't have enough electricity available, especially with an increasing share of renewable energies in the energy system. So right now, as I mentioned, we use oil and gas and coal for baseload. But in order to decarbonize, we need to look at the different alternatives. And hydrogen can play an alternative here.
So it sounds like it's a strategy for electrification. I guess at face value, though, I mean, it's more than that. There's been hydrogen for a long time. Why are you and I having this dialogue today? Because there's been hydrogen as long as we've been doing things. So what makes the dialogue relevant today?
Yes, that's actually true. Hydrogen has been around for quite a while now. But right now we see that it's really important also for climate reasons. As I mentioned, we want to get away from the fossil fuels. We want to reduce the CO2 in our atmosphere. And we want to include the renewable energies in our energy system. So what we have right now is a challenge. So because there will be times where we don't have enough energy available. So sometimes there will be too much energy available, for example, on a sunny or windy day. And sometimes we have too less electricity available. So, for example, during night or winter. And hydrogen derivatives like ammonia or methanol can be the solutions. And that way we can store the surplus electricity in times where we have too much electricity available and then produce hydrogen by the electrolyzers technology.
Interesting.
So I didn't know we have too much electricity at times, but I understand the intermittent nature of electricity and the renewables. I guess you're the voice of the Bavarian hydrogen. That's what you and Stefan are. I guess, how does this make sense regionally? Why is this an important dialogue in your region?
Yeah, I can also say something about that. Just one last remark about the question earlier. I just want to also highlight the keyword sector coupling, because hydrogen is also a tool to link the sectors together. So electricity, heat, and mobility need to be brought together to create a coherent overall energy system. And in Bavaria and in Germany, we think that hydrogen plays a really important role here. That's why we also published our hydrogen strategy quite early on. In Bavaria, we already published it in May 2020. And here we put a strong focus on the green hydrogen and its use in mobility, since Bavaria has quite an important mobility sector here. That's why we also want to use hydrogen in this area.
Carol, that's very interesting. I also hear a lot in the news about the different colors of hydrogen. I didn't know that hydrogen had a color, but we hear green hydrogen, orange hydrogen. What is the difference of these colors?
Right now you hear a lot about the different colors. I already mentioned the clean or the green hydrogen, which refers to the hydrogen generated by the electrolysis technology, which is carried out by using electricity from renewable energies. In addition, I also like to add here the hydrogen that is obtained from biomass by thermochemical or biological conversion processes. And this sometimes is also referred to as orange hydrogen. In the past, we often or only used the gray hydrogen, which is which we can obtain from steam reforming from fossil fuels, violet and natural gas and coal. So we want to get away from the gray hydrogen and to the clean hydrogen. There are also other production techniques and colors that exist as well. However, I think the most important goal to keep in mind is the reduction of the CO2 emissions.
So for our listeners, to recap, green is the best color, orange is next, blue is in the middle, and gray is the worst, right? With respect to...
Well, we don't make the big difference between the orange and the green one. I think the most important thing to remember is, to keep the CO2 level down and, use renewable energies or, biomass, for example.
So we've got all these different types of hydrogen, and you mentioned that there's a hydrogen strategy paper that y'all created. Maybe a little bit more depth of what the hydrogen strategy is, and is it specific to Bavaria, the region, or all of Germany? Maybe help us a little bit understand this strategy paper you created.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you. So Germany has its own national hydrogen strategy, and actually a couple of weeks ago, there's been a new national strategy again to update it. And for Bavaria, we also have our own hydrogen strategy, which is quite similar. However, we have the focus on the mobility sector, as I mentioned, because the industry here is quite important. And also for Bavaria, we have a special situation because Bavaria is an industry center with a high energy demand. And at the same time, we have really limited renewable resources because we are not located at the coast. Therefore, we don't have the possibility to have offshore wind energy, and therefore we have our own focus here. And the main focus in the strategy is hydrogen imports to Bavaria from abroad and the export of Bavarian hydrogen technologies.
So I guess for those of us that don't live in your region, what is the core competence of the region? Is it a very industrial region? And why is this hydrogen so important? And then why don't you just make it locally?
Sure, I will get to this. Basically, Bavaria has energy technology all along the process chain of hydrogen. That's because there were just a lot of big energy technology companies in the south of Germany and especially in Bavaria. You might know Siemens, of course, but there are other smaller companies who also produce like frequency converters and stuff like this. And this goes on to electrolyzers, to biogas gasification units, to chemical conversion plants. So there's a lot of technology all along the chain in Bavaria. And that's why it comes quite logically that the credo of the strategy is importing energy and exporting technology, because there's just everything along the process chain is in Bavaria. It's ready.
Is Bavaria competing with the other federal states of Germany for hydrogen or hydrogen-related technology and resources?
Well, I guess there is, of course, some some friction there, because if you're looking at the country in Germany, there are different industrial centers, and if you're looking at the infrastructure at the same time, so if hydrogen will come from the northwest, it will pass North Rhine-Westphalia and Baden-Württemberg before it comes to Bavaria. So Bavaria needs to figure out to get enough hydrogen. Even after the big companies like BASF or big refineries in the Northwest get their share, we still need to cover our needs. And that's why we are looking at imports and also regional production at the same time. But it has also to line up with the infrastructure, of course.
So that brings a good point. I, until a few weeks ago, lived in Europe, and I moved back to the US, and we're talking hydrogen and we're talking big infrastructure projects. There's the IRA here in the US to help facilitate that growth in North America. What's happening framework wise or policy wise in Germany?
Yeah, so I would say there are different levels, because overall there is an EU level of regulations and rules that were laid out via Green Deal, for example, Fit for 55, renewable energy directives, and so on. So there are a lot of different packages that aim at reducing emissions, like as a main goal, and hydrogen plays a big part of that too. Broken down to Germany, there are different approaches. So there are, for example, funding programs for mobility. There are funding programs for electrolyzers in Bavaria right now at the moment, for example, or refueling stations. So programs to get the infrastructure ready. And that might be the main difference. In the US, you basically you will get a tax reduction for using hydrogen. And I guess in the EU, like we are trying to get the infrastructure ready first, and then make way for the hydrogen. So that might be the main difference. And that's why also a lot of the projects and funding mechanisms that you will see in the EU, they aim at building infrastructure, getting industry ready for hydrogen, and not too much, because there are certain, like you can subsidize OPEX, for example, in the EU. That's like challenging. So we had to choose another way, and this is more getting everyone ready for hydrogen, and afterwards hopefully get enough hydrogen to fill our infrastructure with.
Now, you're saying get enough hydrogen. The earlier questions implied that the hydrogen maybe went through some other regions. So let's go back to the primer on hydrogen a little bit. How is hydrogen moved, and how efficiently can you move it around? So to get it from one part of Germany, or let's say from a sunny region where they could produce use a lot of electricity and produce it, how are we going to get it from point A to point B around Europe?
That's a perfect question, because there are different levels of that as well. So if you're thinking about international transport, you if you have what Carlo said earlier, if you're having an energy surplus or renewable energy surplus in one side of the world at a given time, and we need the energy on the other side of the world at another given time, you need the molecules right away. So there is no way to build a subsea cable from the US to Europe to get the electricity right. So molecules are a big part of it. And the overall strategy is basically build a European network of pipelines, having import terminals ready at the big seaports. And our addition to that, because we can't do it on our own, of course, is to look at the holes that remain. So you will have some connections like from bigger city or bigger industrial centers. And in between, there might remain some black spots, if you like, and with those electrolyzers that are now funded in Bavaria, we are trying to cover those holes because we will need hydrogen in those areas as well. And sometimes it might not be efficient to carry them in a gaseous form in trailers, for example, or in liquefied form. So it might be better to produce it on site.
All right, so the molecules get moved around. Another thing that caught my attention earlier in the interview, you mentioned some other molecules. I think ammonia was mentioned, and I think you mentioned one other. What molecules are moved around?
Sure. Well, ammonia and methanol are kind of bulk chemicals that are used already. So that's why those are kind of the go-to solutions at first. So because we can produce ammonia from like whatever hydrogen that we have, we can produce methanol from whatever hydrogen that we have. So that's why they are quite promising. On the other hand, if you want to use pure hydrogen in the end, this might differ because, like, if you're having ammonia, you will have to get hydrogen out of it, so you have to build a reformer. In methanol, you will have CO2 at that stage as well. So some other carriers are also really prominent, like a Bavarian technology is, or not just Bavarian, but like something that is produced in Bavaria is LOHC technologies using aromatic molecules that can carry a lot of hydrogen and can be reused kind of like a glass bottle, if you like. So you can bind hydrogen to it and release it afterwards. So that's another promising thing. But of course, on a global level, liquid hydrogen for ocean transport is also a good option.
So, Stefan, so ultimately, we want to have an infrastructure that allows us to move hydrogen molecules around, right? And deploy them to where they're needed or convert them into electricity using electrolyzers. But what about the next 5 years or so? It will take some time, 10 years, to build that infrastructure. Will we be seeing ammonia being moved in pipelines? Will we be seeing hydrogen-enriched natural gas? What is your outlook on the?
I think we will see a whole puzzle of it. So I guess there will be regions that can use hydrogen blends, but it depends really on the client that sits on the other hand of the pipeline in most cases. For smaller consumers, also liquid hydrogen, like transport via rail or road, is an option. But if you're going bigger, like refineries, it's hard to get the amount of hydrogen there. So yeah, like pure hydrogen will be there, of course. If you're looking at like really transporting green energies, this can also differ a lot because then you can use also ammonia in an ammonia combustion engine, for example, so you can use it to make energy again. So it depends on the use case, and that's why I think we will have a whole variety of different transport solutions depending on where it comes from, where does the green energy come from, and where do you want to have it, and what do you want to use it for.
I just like to ask because on your question, Roman, which I find really important, because you mentioned that it will take some time to build up the infrastructure, maybe 5 or 10 years, or maybe even longer. But in the end, and that's just something that I would really like to highlight. We need the pipelines because in Bavaria alone, we have a high energy demand, and the pipelines are going to be the most efficient option to bring these big amounts of hydrogen to Bavaria and to the customers. And therefore, which might be quite interesting, we have the European Hydrogen Backbone. This is an initiative of more than 30 energy infrastructure operators in Europe that currently already work with existing and new pipelines to create this new infrastructure. And in Bavaria, we also have a project which is called HyPipe Bavaria. And here we really start off building the hydrogen infrastructure now to connect the biggest off-takers that we have in Bavaria. So in the south, we have a big chemical cluster that needs a lot of hydrogen in the future. We also have refineries in the center that will have a high energy demand. And therefore, we're already working on these projects right now to build up this infrastructure. And not only on the regional, on a Bavarian level, but also on a transnational level. So there's the South H2 corridor, for example, that also links the pipeline projects together, so that in the end, maybe we're also going to be connected to North Africa, to Italy, Austria, and then this hydrogen will hopefully also end up in Germany as well.
Yeah, and what I just want to add at that point is you shouldn't forget that Germany and especially Bavaria have really ambitious goals of climate neutrality. So in Germany, it's 2045, and in Bavaria, it's even 2040. So that's why we really need to get going, and we really need to look at all the different possibilities. And as Carlos said, we need to start building infrastructure. So we have a big interest in the European hydrogen backbone, and the project that Caro mentioned is just a perfect example for that.
That sounds really interesting, but also very ambitious. I guess that these infrastructure products do not come in cheap. And recent news today, the German government does not want to give up e-fuels yet. So they're talking about subsidies and rebates, etc. So how do you think these infrastructure projects can compete with old, let's say, oil, quote unquote, infrastructure and e-fuels?
Well, I think it's a matter of cost. And I mentioned the Green Deal and Repower EU and so on. And one thing they are about is increasing cost of CO2 emissions. So if you're having fossil CO2 emissions, it will get more expensive to have your technology going. So whenever you're emitting fossil CO2, you will pay extra. And so I guess that's one point at where where renewable energies or e-fuels or synfuels come in handy, because then you will use per definition biogeneous or recaptured carbon. And so you don't have to pay those taxes or fines or the CO2 price. And that will give you a possibility to refinance the green premium, if you like. On the other hand, speaking about e-fuels, you shouldn't forget that it's not just about cars. So I think that's one thing. The discussion goes sometimes in the wrong direction. It's not just about cars. It's about planes. It's about ships. And those are commodities, or those are technologies that have long investment cycles. So every ship that is ordered now will be running on sea in 30 years. And the same as every plane. So that's why synfuels will remain an important option or a possibility to reach climate neutrality after all in all transport scenarios.
What I'm hearing is the different use cases. I started this segment asking a little bit about policy, right? And the things that were going through my mind, if the audience could read the chat, when you were speaking, it's like, well, energy security for the region seems to be something pretty important to bring in energy security. And it's really hard to have a conversation in the last couple of years about Germany without understanding energy security. I guess you talked about a pretty ambitious goal, 2045, or earlier terms, I guess, maybe to get everything there. How does this play into energy security, having hydrogen in place? And the second part of that is, I do believe it's an energy transition, not an energy flip the switch, right? So we don't have enough green energy tomorrow. I have had guests, now that I'm back in the US, it's a little bit different view than folks in Europe, saying, well, we need to have hydrogen, but some of it's not going to be green. It's going to be other colors, right? And maybe it's going to be produced regionally closer to the plant. There's going to be some smaller modular production of it. Maybe you guys could speak to that.
Yeah, I can start, and maybe Stefan, you might add something later on. So, on one of your questions, yeah, it's not going to be a complete switch from one day to another. So there will be some other forms. I talked about the colors before. There will be some other colors of hydrogen before we will have the green one. So there might be the blue hydrogen as well, where we still use the hydrogen from gas, from natural gas, for example, but then we try to store or utilize the CO2 again. So that might be an option. And then there's also going to be a lot of different local projects, regional projects, so pilot projects, because we don't have these huge renewable energies in order to have these big projects production for hydrogen production that we need for our industries, but there will be some smaller projects as well. I think that is also really important to have this, just to make sure that it's, first of all, that it's working, that the technology is ready, and that we can scale it up. So this is for one reason, that's why it's a good idea, but also, for energy security as well. So to have some smaller electrolyzers in different regions and communities to also make it more visible to the public. So to know, okay, what is hydrogen? It is to show them that it's not dangerous, that it can be used like any other energy carrier as well. And when we look at a bigger level, when we think about energy security, I think what we've learned from the last couple of months and years is that we shouldn't only focus on one importing country, but to look at different countries as well. So that's why, and that's also kind of my role at the H2B, since I'm working for the international affairs. So we really want to have a lot of international cooperation projects on hydrogen with a lot of different countries, because we believe that a lot of countries have big potentials when it comes to the production of green hydrogen. A lot of countries have a lot of solar potential, a lot of wind potentials. And I think here it's really good to work together and to have big scaled up projects to produce the hydrogen. And we in Bavaria, we can show the technology, we can offer the technology. And here there are really good opportunities to work together and to use the different strengths that we have in the different regions and countries as well.
Now, I hear the common good, right? We want to reduce CO2, we want to have energy there. But one of the things I recall from our pre-call and the industrial area that you are in is Bavaria is known for making equipment for making hydrogen. So it's a bit self-serving too, because you're not only trying to be green yourself, but you're trying to export the technology to other areas of the world. Maybe talk a little bit about what's made in Bavaria and the region that others are going to use to help with this hydrogen journey.
Yeah, sure. So you made a perfect example. So there are two big electrolyzer companies based in Bavaria. They have strong connection to the energy world already because they are coming from the energy technology field. So that's like a good starting point, because people know you, they know your name, so you can work on from there. And on the other hand, there are conversion technologies, so methanation units, for example. So you want to make synthetic methane, you can use a Bavarian technology. So you want to use waste to produce hydrogen, you can use Bavarian technologies. You can transport it using Bavarian technologies, and in the end, there are different opportunities also to use it. May it be like turbines, gas turbines, may it be mobility applications. So as I mentioned, it's across the whole value chain that you can use Bavarian technologies, even going further to also electric equipment. So after like re-electrification, you can use Bavarian technologies, and also starting from your solar plant or wind farm, you can also use Bavarian technologies to produce the direct current electricity that you actually need for the electrolyzer.
That's interesting. And you at the Hydrogen Center Bavaria, you help Bavarian companies engage in that development and interact with other markets, with other countries, exchange information. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And not only companies, but also research institutions, different clusters, different organizations that are involved in the hydrogen topic. So one of our tasks at the H2B is also the coordination of the Hydrogen Alliance Bavaria. And this is a big networking, information and interest platform that serves as a loose network for the hydrogen players in Bavaria. And here we really have hydrogen players along the entire hydrogen value chain. So as Stefan already mentioned, we have a lot of companies that are involved in the production of hydrogen, but also with the hydrogen applications, transportation, storage, conversion, and so on. And what we like to do is to help them, to support them selling their technology, but also finding project partners. We are organizing different events, networking opportunities to help them meet other partners in order to start the hydrogen projects, not only in Bavaria, but around the world.
I must admit, you have a very, very exciting job, but I guess it's also quite challenging. So what are the biggest challenges you see, but also the biggest hopes you see in your daily work in the next time?
There is a lot of things to do. Like I'm glad to say that the technology in most of the times is not the issue. So the technology is ready. Of course, the price is not. We all know that. So there needs to be, of course, a depreciation of price levels. So it needs to get cheaper. On the other hand, there is kind of a difficulty to get cheaper, because as we know from battery electric vehicles, for example, as the numbers of sold vehicles rose, the price fell. So we need to get the hydrogen technologies out there. And in some cases, there are like really difficulties also from a regulatory framework. For example, producing hydrogen in Germany and using grid electricity is a challenge, because electricity price is high at to start with. Then you have to make sure that you have the right PPA. You might even have to pay other fees, like for grid usage and so on. So it's really difficult, and we need to find a way to produce hydrogen here and in other parts of the world. So one example that I think is really important. So if we are thinking about EU regulations and we want to use excess electricity only, in Germany, there is a lot of downtime of your electrolyzers then. So especially in the south of Germany, where you don't have like coast winds, there might be a lot of downtime of your electrolyzer. And in the end, you have to refinance it. So there needs to be a solution to have a business case for those electrolyzers, kind of a capacity market as you have it nowadays for gas-powered power plants, for example. But this isn't ready yet. So government is still thinking about a solution for that. We are also trying to help to gather opinions in those issues, but that's just one of them. Another thing, like Germany, I guess, is famous for right now is how long it takes to get your project running, not from, again, a technological point of view, but like to have all permissions ready. And that's a big issue. So sometimes of a 5-year project, 2.5 years might be like permissions. So that's not the way to get to have a solution for the challenge of like having a just and green transition, because it just takes too much time. But just to name a few of them.
Stefan, that is the idea with the electrolyzers and the capacity management of electrolyzer capacity is very, very interesting. And I have to think more about this, but I guess that we will also be able to learn more about these ideas at the Nuremberg Hydrogen Dialogue, right?
Sure. So you heard a lot about Bavarian hydrogen technologies, but if you like, you can come to Nuremberg and even have a look at them. And as a plus, I would say you can even meet us in person.
Yeah, that's true. We will be there because the H2B is the conceptual partner of the Hydrogen Dialogue. So we will also be present there at a booth and be ready to talk to anybody who is interested in the Bavarian hydrogen landscape. And just a small introduction what the Hydrogen Dialogue actually is. So this is a summit and expo which takes place this year for the fourth time already and brings together national and international stakeholders from business, politics, and science along the entire hydrogen value chain. So this year it takes place on the 6th and 7th of December in Nuremberg. So if you like, you can meet us there, meet our partners, and also enjoy the Christmas market in Nuremberg because it will be there as well.
Well, awesome. So December 6th and 7th in Nuremberg, you said the show is, just to be clear. What I suggest is we'll put the link to the show in the show notes. So anyone interested in it, there will be a web link in the show notes. Just take a look there. I think the conversation has been particularly interesting. We started with very high level, why hydrogen, why now, why your region? We talked about the different kinds of hydrogen. We then went on to talk just briefly about some policy and some infrastructure getting in place to make this possible, and then where it could go. And anyone wanted to carry on that conversation, I think it'd be fun to do at the show. So I hope people stop by your booth and have a visit. I want to thank both of you for being on our first episode of our Hydrogen mini-series. Thank you so much for being our guest today on Insider's Guide to Energy podcast.
I also want to thank Stefan and Carol for being here. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in Nuremberg, December 6th and 7th. I deal with these kind of things every day, but I still have learned a ton today. So thank you very much for your contributions, for your input, and keep up the work.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for your time and your interest. And we hope that we have a lot of international guests at the Hydrogen Dialogue this year.
True. See you in Nuremberg, I guess.
And we look forward to seeing you both in Nuremberg. For our audience, we hope you've enjoyed this first episode. There's 7 episodes in this series coming, maybe even 8. Tune in to find out more about what's happening in hydrogen. We look forward to talking to you again next time on the Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen mini-series. Bye-bye.